Welcome to the Cafe Night Show. I'm your host, the Goldsmith. It is the 20th of November, 2024. It is a Wednesday. We are halfway through the week, and we had two big days, Monday and Tuesday of this week. We are on to Wednesday, and we had to lose a little bit of momentum. It couldn't be as much as often going on as we did have Monday and Tuesday this week. We do still have a few things to update. First and foremost, the charging stations that we had discussed early in the week with Upwind putting out early in the week that they are coming. They're already here. So get into the specifics of the new charging stations, the game of Upwind, some ideas on the mechanics or some things to go over the mechanics. The season challenge, open for ideas from Upland. Go over that because that is a big thing. Looking into what can we do in seasons to make seasons more fun. This is something that we thought. I thought at this point that Upland would have done more, may have been done more things in iterations, but they have. They've done a couple things with the ornament contest and racing seasons during the season itself, and Upland's looking for other ideas as well that can be done inside those seasons. And again, this is an iterative process, and we want to see our seasons get better and more to do in those seasons, more reasons to participate. One season to the next and seeing what you can do there. So we'll get into that. And otherwise, one other thing is there's some strategy evolving now with cars. Now that there is mileage, now there is a countdown clock in your car, driving between cities. Now there's already this strategy of let's keep the miles off the cars. And we don't have miles in races, but we have miles in movement. So let's not move our cars between cities. So we'll get into that as well. For tonight, let's get the disclaimer out of the way so we get into those two items. And there's not a lot else there. So we'll get into the disclaimer, get into a couple things that we have for the announcements today, and be happy that we have had as much happen Monday and Tuesday this week that we are good and happy to take a breather today. All these opinions expressed by myself, they're mine and mine alone, should not be taken as game strategy or financial advice. They don't represent the game of Upwind, the team of Upwind. Any guests or contributors that we do have on, they have their own opinions and welcome to them. They shouldn't be taken as game strategy or financial advice. They don't represent the game of Upwind, the team of Upwind, myself, the Goldsmith of the Cafe Nightly Show. Swarley, it is great to see you. I'm glad you're here. Let's go and take a look at that first piece, the first announcement that really kind of is a fulfillment of a previous announcement. This is a kind of a little bit of a pattern that I'm glad to see develop, and that is Upwind says something's coming, and it doesn't take 6 weeks for it to happen. Upwind says something's coming, and it happens in 3 or 4 days, and in this case, even less. At everybody in Upland. All right, the first round of the Upland's charging stations, aka the pit stops along the way on the map, are live. We have 1550 Riverside Ave in Jacksonville, Florida, which I hope we don't get the whole city of Jacksonville just because we don't need it. But 1550 Riverside Ave in Jacksonville, Florida is a pit stop, as is 3696 Wiley Road in Montgomery, Alabama. What these charging points allow us to do, or allow people traveling between Miami and New Orleans and Miami and Nashville to do, is have centralized points where we can stop along the way, get the charge, then continue on. Ultimately, driving by car, now that there's limitations of storage space or energy storage in vehicles, you're not going to be able to get as far on your car. You're going to be limited to, driving between two cities. And just like the real world, you can't get all the way north or all the way south on the East Coast or the West Coast on a single tank of gas or on a single charge of your electric car. You have to stop somewhere and fill up the tank, or stop somewhere and charge that car. The charge of the car is a better analog here for Upland. That's ultimately what you're doing here with Sparklet. So you would stop halfway through. You'd stop at Jacksonville. You'd stop in Montgomery, and you'd let your car get charged for a series of hours and then get back on the road. The keynote here is going to be that, we don't expect these cities necessarily to magically spawn up or be minted just because they're existing as a midway point for charge stations. Upwind is just trying to keep up with the analog, or keep up with the logic behind their car traveling. They have a specific amount of range for a car, instead of just magically saying you can travel between two cities that are too far apart, or instead of saying you're not allowed to travel between those two cities because they're too far apart. Upland is creating these waypoints, these spots along the way in between cities to allow car travel within a continent. We still know you cannot travel a car over the oceans. That's not going to be something that we're necessarily expecting to see anytime soon. Once Upland locked cars to specific continents, we're ultimately seeing and talking about and expecting car travel to continue to exist on continents and continue to evolve. And that's why we have these way stations, these midway points, these charging stations that Upwinds put out. Now, along with the charging stations, which we just barely got, and along with the traveling between cities and using charging with Sparklet, you kind of had this other thing that happened that we had talked about for years, literally, that there were layers of things that were happening to cars. And eventually there was going to be damage, but up front there wasn't damage. And eventually there was going to be cars wearing down, but up front there wasn't cars wearing down. Now we can actually see miles on cars, or a number of miles that you have racked up over time on your car by traveling between cities. That has not directly been tied to functionality where you get a certain number of miles and the car doesn't work the same way, or you get a certain number of miles and you have to do something additional to get the car to work better. We don't have that yet, but that is something that we likely see coming, something Upland have talked about for years. So people are already looking at those miles racking up and saying, ooh, what does this mean? What's this going to mean for me? How do I keep those miles off? Okay, there's schemes going on already where people are talking about, hey, if you trade me your car for this, then when you trade it back, then you can swap it between cities. That is something that exists right now. I mean, is that a loophole that Upland's going to change? I don't know. But ultimately, if you exchange one property for another, one asset for another, if I switch my car for your map asset, and let's say I really do have a 100,000 UPX map asset and you have a 100,000 UPX car, and we were to swap those, well, when I took my possession of my car from you, I would have to designate where it goes, and it's not going to be city locked at that point. So it can go anywhere. And when I do that, it does not add miles to the car. And that could be a loophole, but again, that is something that as a mechanic, that is kind of tied into Upland right now. That is the best they've got. We don't currently have this idea that if two people swap and the cars in one city and the map assets in another, that we say, oh, you have to transport that map asset from city A to wherever that car is for the exchange, and the car has to somehow get transported back between city B back to city A. That's not what is baked in the pie at the moment. So we have this swap, we have this functionality that people are able to use, and they're using at this time. And again, it doesn't break the rules of the game of Upland, because that is the way things are working. Again, if people are abusing these mechanisms and mechanics, Upland has the ability to make a comment or say that it's disadvantaging other people playing the game, but it isn't at this point. It doesn't seem like it is. Temporary holding of one person's property with an exchange back, again, bilateral decision to do so, doesn't seem like it's violating anything. Again, there's this question, and it always has been, about the fairness of an individual exchange. If I have an exchange A and the car's worth blank and the map asset's worth blank and they're not equal value, I understand Upland being concerned about how is that tied into the movement of assets between parties. But ultimately, if it's a temporary swap, they swap back. The question is where is the where is the wrong to it? So that is something to watch out for as it could evolve. It's something that already cropped up in minutes, maybe hours after the mechanics were described. People say, oh, I found a way to work around it. Oh, those miles, they might be something people don't want to rack up. So that is a consideration. And the other consideration that we already have evolving over the first couple of days of having travel, Trees, it's very good to see you. The first couple of days of having travel in the game of Upland that requires charging of cars is people are starting to look at, what can I do with my Sparklet? It's this much Sparklet for this many hours. And not only can I look at that as I could rent my Sparklet on one of the exchanges, I also have to look at the mechanic of adding my Sparklet and removing my Sparklet. Those type of things, at least in my case, I might have a couple windows during the day I can do it. Even if it only takes me an hour to charge my car, that might be 4 hours without it, staked on a building I'm trying to build, or staked on a building that I'm getting compensated to have my Spark staked on, because I just don't have that time necessarily to go in every hour to move the sparklet around. It's just the window of my availability. So when we start looking at, the loss of availability of ability to have that sparklet staked on building A because it's on the car charging, we can start to see a differentiated economy when we talk about the economy of traveling with a vehicle versus using public transportation. With public transportation, at least in my case, in a lot of the places on the West Coast, it already looks like it is as efficient cost-wise, UPX, to continue to have a spark staked if I have it for compensation and I'm getting compensated for it being staked one place or another. It seems to be as efficient to keep it staked where it's staked and pay the UPX. Because again, if I'm being compensated for staking my sparklet, I am going to theoretically be making that sparklet that I would otherwise be spending on the travel. And if we really look at what is the differentiated value between cars that have miles versus not, that's not something that has played out yet. People are speculating in 6 months and 6 years what that means as opposed to what it means tomorrow. What it means tomorrow for your actual utility of that car looks like it's probably going to be very little for tomorrow and the next week and the week following. But if it means something in 6 years or 6 months, the amount of mileage you can keep off the car, again, is something that people are already considering, and it may have some value or may have some meaning to keep miles off the car when we get going. So it's just something to consider as we get started here. That yes, we did have a change in utility. It is a partial change in utility. More changes to come, including that wear and tear actually means something different for your car. Requirements either for repair or a degrading asset, meaning you might have less utility over time based on the number of miles that have been put on it. So keep that in mind as we do get started with travel, and travel starts in the game, and that there is a balance. We can travel this way, we can travel this way. If we choose to travel this way, these are the costs. If we choose to travel this way, which would be public transportation, these are the costs. So something to watch out for and keep an eye on as we see this continue to evolve here over the next several months. Alongside the evolving over the next several months, and in regards to trying to make Upland a little more fun, a little more immersive, we are going to continue to push on this idea of seasons. Inside of a season, there's a specific number of activities that are done that tied to a season. We have the aesthetic cosmetic passes. We have a ornament contest where we have ornaments sold that are tied to that season, and you keep them decorated. That goes to a leaderboard contest, but it also is a encouragement of people having specific ornaments up to celebrate a season that's ongoing. Changing your ornaments every season. That is fun. That is something that's built into a season. We do have car racing. Every season has its own series of car racing, and then other than that, there's not a lot else. We obviously have the gamified tasks. Gamified tasks are done every season. They're done inside the season, but they're not really tied to the season as much as they are individual accomplishments. They don't necessarily show on the map or in the game continued progress. It is more of an individual basis, continue to earn an increase in your dividends, but it also, for this airdrop that we continue to have, this airdrop campaigns, it also gets you a larger airdrop along the way as well. But Upland is looking to do more within the season, and I don't blame them. This is something we've talked about, and they've talked about since the idea of season started earlier this year. I think February, since season started earlier this year, or the new structure of season started earlier this year, Upland's been talking about how do you make a season more fun inside that season with activities and things that are tied to that period of time, the 45 days of the season. What fun new challenges / events would you love to experience in Upland each season? This could be, again, a leaderboard type contest. This could be a large scale city v city or neighborhood v neighborhood type contest, which we've had in the past and we've loved. Upland has talked about having these events, and specifically talking about Spud Wars, these building competitions. They've talked about having these coming up in the near future. This would be a place where people could say, hey, I want to have that happen. Maybe Upland's working on that on their own, and it sounds like they may be, but it is something that is on my list. Or if we're talking about what do we want to see, the building contests within seasons, neighborhood versus neighborhood, incentives to continue to build out different areas of the map, maybe even incentives to mint out areas that aren't minted out where there's reward points inside the season. So you're doing something inside that season beginning to end that you could see transformative. Minting out an old city. Again, we know that the city lock is doing a lot towards removing some of those properties as mintables, but minting out a certain area or developing a certain area, having that be a contest and having rewards along the way. But there's also many other contests or potential city to city, neighborhood to neighborhood, or entire upland based activities that could be built into the season. Give us your suggestions on Miles's latest activity feed post, and we'll pick our 10 favorite replies to receive 10,000 UPX. Deadline is Friday, November the 22nd at 9 a.m. PT. Upland does actually take these seriously, reads these, and uses them. It doesn't mean that they don't have ideas of their own, but it does mean that they're taking community opinion and community sentiment. If you're taking community sentiment into account, Upland, it does put us in a position that there are certain things that Upland might not come up with on their own. They're not regular players of the game. They have their own ideas and they have their own plan and their own roadmap. And it is something that sometimes having more heads on an issue opens up a larger degree or larger variety of potential solutions. So we'd love to see more. We'd love to see better. And this is Upland's opportunity, or Upland's request, I should say, to see more and to see better. They want to see what you see and your thoughts are. This is something that the easiest way to access this is in Layer 1 Upland. Go to messages in game. You're going to go to your feed, and everyone, unless they try to change it differently, is following Miles. You'll see this right here. What fun new challenges or events would you love to experience in Upland each season? That's right here. And then you just go and make your comment. Comment right here. There's 87 comments already out there, but comment right here. And you will have the opportunity to get 10,000 UPX. But also, if you have a really good idea and it's something you really want to have happen, you have an opportunity of Upland potentially, no guarantees, potentially taking your idea and making it happen and making it something we see in future seasons. And there's a lot here. Some of these things that I've always liked is, tie an activity to something that happens that season. I've been saying it since we've had these ties to the season, and we've had the cosmetic themes, and we've had the cosmetic passes, the premium cosmetic pass. I've been saying, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we actually had something during whatever time of year? If it is carnival season, have something that's tied to carnival. If it's going to be the Wonderland season, it's actually the winter holidays, have something tied to those winter holidays. In the fall, when we have harvest season, the end of the year, orange and red leaves falling from trees and on the ground, have something that's tied to that time of year. And very, very much, that's one of these comments, or some of these comments that we see going in there. And there are a bunch of Layer 2 games. Some of them have had official rollouts with Upland, putting some energy behind them. Upland, promoting some of these Layer 2s. And there's a lot of things where people are saying contest in this Layer 2 or this Layer 2, an event, official event with Upland, but this season, this Layer 2, and maybe move next season into another Layer 2. There's a lot of great ideas here. Treasure hunting competitions, that's been something that people have missed out on. Some of these more major treasure hunting contests. I'm looking for them to come back, and that's something as well. So there's a lot here. There's a lot of great ideas, but there's room for plenty more between now and this coming Friday, the 22nd, 9 a.m. PT. Get in and get your suggestions in. One other thing worth noting is I'm in the same boat as all of you, which is there was a snapshot on Friday the 15th that was supposed to determine how much Sparklet I'm getting for this second airdrop of the harvest season, and I haven't seen it yet. November 15th was the close of the harvest season. That was also the snapshot for Sparklet airdrop. We're on the 20th right now, and we haven't seen that amount get dropped. So just keep your eyes out, watch out, and know it has not dropped for me yet. So it maybe not dropping for you is not the end of the world, but it is definitely worth noting. Yes, that is supposed to be dropping. Yes, we are headed into getting there, getting close to Wonderland season. It would be nice to get that airdrop before we get there. Good to see you, Blue. Glad you can make it. Dope as crew. Great to see you as well. And yeah, that's where we are right now. We are headed into Wonderland season. We are waiting for that airdrop. Has not just dropped yet, and we are continuing to see the mechanics of the charge your cars to travel kind of play out, and people get a better feel of what it looks like, the cost versus the savings, the benefit of not using public transportation. We continue to see that evolve here, and we will continue to see that evolve here in the not so distant future. The ultimate thing that I've said since we've had the idea of vehicles and the idea that we're going to have transportation with vehicles is if the economics work, there is a value to traveling between cities with your car. If it's a, saving money, or there is some type of enhanced utility with bringing your car around, it's going to make sense. It's going to be something that people are going to do. If the economics don't line up, if it's a lot cheaper to use public transportation, then that's probably what most people are going to end up doing. And we're continuing to see that evolve, but people are starting to make those trend lines already and starting to make those decisions already at this point. So for tonight, we're going to keep our eyes out for the rest of the week. For tonight, thank you so much for being here. We are here Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. PT. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back Friday. On Fridays and Tuesdays, we are in the Upland Plaza. But on Mondays through Friday, we are on YouTube. We are on Twitter. We are on Discord if you want to listen along in the Upland Discord Cafe. But for tonight, thank you for being here. If you're in the Upland Discord Cafe, feel free to unmute your mics. The floor is yours.